Bandidos, what up? Tux here. Hey, we're with the First Descendant and we're looking at Keelan here. Have you tried this guy out since the patch? Well, if you haven't, they gave him major buffs, basically doubling all his damage. And they updated his build so that you can use him right now to dominate everything. And the way it's set up, he's going to get even stronger with the patch coming on the 17th. I'll show you why. Let's do this.
Wait, did we just become best friends? So nice to meet you. I think you're cool.
I've been making my way around all the Descendants who got a major buff in the patch that came in on April 3rd. And Keelan is one of them. And he feels fabulous. I've always liked Keelan, just that his damage wasn't there compared to the rest. Well, that's been changed thanks to the recent rebalance. That's not all. We're going to go through all these buffs, but I also want to bring to the surface that he's about to be a heck of a lot stronger starting on the 17th. This is why. They're releasing another series of external components. And one of them is called the Plague. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to get 5% more skill power to your singular, which is what he runs. And then on top of that, you're going to get a little less shield, I guess. I don't know what that's about, but you're going to get toxic skill power at 36.8%. That's crazy. So on acquiring custom resource, which he has and Freyna doesn't, toxic skill power modifier at 21.6% more. That's amazing. So I think this is built for Keelan more than it is for Freyna because of that one detail there. This particular one has an HP element to it as well, which could be helpful. This is coming in just a couple of days. So some of the decisions I made on the build have that in mind. So first off, this is the patch that came in. Everything's basically been doubled. Now Tremor got a little bit more than double. That one's got a serious boost. It's 1703 to 4258% damage, and that's per stack, by the way. Most enemies die before Tremor even needs to be used. His kit really focuses on Onslaught, and I'm going to show you that Septic Gust is also really important now than it's ever been. And that's good because Septic Gust got a 3x increase. It went from 541 to 1623, and the Blood Rot damage is 422 to 1268, and that's the damage over time element. If you're not familiar with Keelan, he's all about explosive speed. He pierces through targets, and anybody in the perimeter is going to receive explosive damage, all of which is going to apply a toxic tick for damage over time. So his first skill is Void Corrosion. Now we don't really use this very much, so Acidic Infusion is his purple bar or his custom resource, so he doesn't rely on mana, so no MP here. And that's a big win because it allows you to take advantage of some of the stronger mobs. So looking at his passive real quick, it's the agility thing. So at max stacks, which is 4, his skill power modifier increase per stack is going to be 28%. And then his movement speed increases per stack at 12.5%. So looking at his bread and butter, Onslaught. So this is toxic and singular, and it's his dash. It has a max stacks of 5 dashes in the bank with the stack cooldown, as I have it at 7.6 seconds. So he can dash a full 12 meters, and the stacked cooldown reduction per enemy you pierced is 5 seconds, and the max reduction count is 3. That means in a single dash you can wipe 15 seconds off of your stacks. Now I'm going to pause here for a second because I believe it's really easy to overbuild into cooldowns. You don't need it. In my opinion, this is one of the best cooldown mechanics in the game. 15 seconds just for piercing targets. It's really easy to do in the content that we've been provided. So 400% dungeons, Sigma sector, you're just loaded with enemies. And when it comes to bossing, yeah, which is going to at least give you 5 seconds back, which is basically one of your stacks. Moreover, you have his number 4. It's called Tremor. It's at an 8.3 second cooldown. You can use it to take out enemies that already have acidic decay, but you don't really need to. It is way overpowered for that. All of his skills are way overpowered for that. I don't really need to use this, not even against the Sigma sector bosses, because the pierces are strong enough. By the time I move my finger just to hit that button, the boss is dead anyways. It's easier to just pierce him and finish him with Onslaught. But for big, huge, tanky bosses against like the Tormentor, then that's when Tremor is going to come into play. And you can't do that. You can't boss against the Tormentor, but it does require crits, not super reliable. The other thing that this does, if there's no enemies in range that have acidic decay applied, this will give you Onslaught stacks back by 3. So between this and piercing targets, it's actually pretty hard to run out of Onslaught. Give me a second here before we go through all of the details of the build, because I think this is important to explain, because I think Mobile Strike is actually not as good as it seems. Septic Gust, which is his number 3, is adjusted to deal no damage. Instead, it grants the adventurer's spirit effect to self, preventing onslaught stack reduction during the effect duration. If you load up your build with a bunch of duration and you hit his number 3, then you can onslaught or dash as much as you want in that duration and not lose any stacks. But by doing that, you lose a ton of damage. The burst damage drops to 1095. Without this, the burst damage is 1753% modifier. That's over 37% decrease in damage. Huge. So if you run Mobile Strike, you get a measly pierce damage of skill power by 320%. You're gonna be piercing enemies anyways, whether you want to or not. So that's skill power by 1595%. And you're gonna be piercing multiple targets, as many as you can in a 12-meter radius. So just because there's a max reduction count for the cooldown, which is 3, there's not a max damage count. So if you pierce 12 enemies in 12 meters, think of that damage. Right now, Mobile Strike is okay. It'll destroy 400% dungeons. I fully ran the Mobile Strike mod, and I spent a lot of hours going back and forth to determine which one I liked better. And I'm gonna close my thoughts up on this right here. They both worked. They were both fast, but without the mod, you're noticeably stronger. And I think that will go further in this game than Mobile Strike. Okay, moving on. So I'm gonna quickly go through the build, but there are mechanics to him you're gonna wanna know. For damage, we're building into his number 2 and his number 3, Septic Gust. They're both toxic singular. We have no crits on his build, so we're starting off with toxic amplification at the cost of crit damage, but we don't care. And then we got singular amplification for skill power modifier with the cost to crit. I got focus on singular for a little bit of skill cooldown. We do want some skill cooldown on his build. And my final damage is focus on toxic. To finish off his cooldowns, I went with nimble fingers and MP conversion, which is free cooldown because he doesn't use MP. So all of that cooldown, you might be thinking it's for Onslaught, and it does help because you do want this as low as reasonably possible without overdoing it, but it's really about his number 3 and his number 4. So his number 3 is down to 4.8 seconds, and every time this comes available, you're gonna hit him with a 1623.9% modifier, and it's gonna put on some acidic decay, which is gonna apply blood rot, which has an additional damage of skill power times 1268. The range on that is 250%. And then we get our tremor down to a cooldown of 8.3 seconds, and we're mostly using this as backup to our onslaught or a dash. So I refill it when I need to. Security measures. I'm using Stim Accelerant, which is giving us 234% HP at a cost of MP. Again, he doesn't need MP. The flexible slots, these are up to you, but I gotta say, I highly recommend these. There's more to this build than what's on paper. We're gonna go over those details because on the 17th, we're gonna get a patch. He's gonna get another buff because of some gear that they're giving us. So we'll go over that in a second. The other one I wanna point out is actually Veteran Tactics. This is really good on him. I kept going back and forth between Veteran Tactics and Potent Collector. Veteran Tactics is nice because it constantly gives you back your number 4, and so that it's always ready for you. Veteran Tactics doesn't work on skills that stack. We don't need it to because we're always piercing targets. If we have our number 4 always available, that means we have infinite onslaught, because if we're running out of stacks, we just activate our number 4. In the end, I stuck with Potent Collector. So when defeating an enemy, instantly recovers 12.2% of custom resource at a 17% chance. So that's his purple bar. He's got AoE, so you're killing many enemies at once, increasing your odds of this kicking in even multiple times because there's no cooldown. If you look closely, the acidic infusion level cost of his number 3 is 250. The cost of his number 4 is 500. So if you use this once, your number 4 may be available from a cooldown perspective, but not from a resource perspective. Look at his resource. It's only 1,000 points. That's not a lot. When I was analyzing my own gameplay, I was paying attention to the cooldown of Tremor especially, because it's pretty important. And what I found was that when it wasn't available, it wasn't because of the cooldown. 8.3 seconds is really fast for something like this. Instead, when it wasn't available, it was because it didn't have enough resource. So the cooldown would lapse, then it would sit there not ready for me to be able to use because I didn't have enough purple bar, because maybe I used one of my other skills that consumed it. And just so you know, when you're out of combat for 10 seconds, you have to rebuild up that purple bar, and I think that's part of it. So Potent Collector basically keeps your purple bar topped off, and it allows you to spam your number 3 and your number 4 whenever you want to. But your number 3 especially, putting out more damage in between onslaughts. So now we're going to talk about some quick mechanics. Septic Gust is really important to your efficiency of Onslaught. So with Onslaught, you get your best damage and your best uptime by piercing targets. Piercing 3 targets at once is really easy. But after you do that, sometimes there's stragglers. What you don't want to do is have to adjust yourself and go pierce that one straggler. No, that's what Septic Gust is for. Don't have to worry about them. There could be one over here, one over there. You just hit this button and they all fall down. Pierce targets, Septic Gust. Pierce targets, Septic Gust. I just stick the Septic Gust in there because I know I have the resources to do it. Dangerous Ambush is simple. We're gonna get more damage to enemies not targeting us at 25%. So the good and the bad thing about Keelin is that he's pretty linear. So you dash and then you have to turn 180 degrees to go back after maybe a boss or a mob that you want to re-pierce. And it's really gonna slow you down if you have to manually rotate. Here's a tip for you to make this go smoother. I'm on the Xbox, so I use a controller. Now, if you're using a mouse and keyboard, it's probably less of an issue. You're gonna wanna make sure your settings are up to date, and there's a configuration that really helps with this. So if you go to gameplay and then down here, first make sure that your sprint is the default movement method, okay? So it's just always on. Can't turn it off, can't turn it on, he's always sprinting. Got it. All right, then you're gonna wanna go over to your controller and then go to user settings. Take off the binding for sprint. So this used to be left stick, so remove that binding so there's no conflict here. Next, go to quick turn and program your left stick or whatever other button you want to be your quick turn, which is your 180 degree spin. I decided to use the down on my D-pad because I have paddles so that I can use a different finger to do it. I avoid pressing in on my thumbsticks if I can, just personal preference thing, go with whatever you like. But if I was running a controller without paddles, then I would go ahead and click in to my left stick. It's gonna take a little bit of practice to get used to that 180 turn, and it's not perfect. Sometimes you find yourself staring at a wall, but for the most part, you're covered. And remember, you don't have to pierce every target. I recommend at a minimum, just pierce one. Cooldown reasons, you definitely want to take advantage of that mechanic. I'm using toxic skill power boost ratio with skill cooldown. We're not going to need any more damage. I'll show you why in a second here. So I have mine paired with the hand cannon because I'm primarily running with the peacemaker. So I have mine set to sprint speed and whatnot. I actually am planning on going to the Python. I'm just tired of going into the purge and farming cores. So I'm waiting for the patch on the 17th. But when I do, I think it's worth building into the Python and going into sprint speed and grappling hook so you can basically fly in the air so that you can go from one checkpoint to the next without having to rely on your gust. Plus this is basically faster. But what's unique about this weapon, Keelan doesn't have time to shoot, but against heavies, you can hit some weak points, which would be their head, and that would bring down their toxic resistance. For now, you don't really need this because the bosses die so easy, you could just pierce them. Otherwise, for backup weapons, I'm using the Volsha. And if I really want to shoot, it's going to be the Malevolent. I'm using Tactical Change and Defense Master. Conversion Reinforcement, I went with Adrenaline Rush, Biodensity Augmentation, Arcade Circulation Tactic. From time to time, it gives me 24% skill cooldown for 10 seconds. So that's also kicking in, helping us have more availability whenever we need it. For Arcade Tuning, I went back and forth a few times, but for the most part, I pick up some HP here and we just go for skill damage, so we make our way there. Skill cooldown, so just a little bit more here to help our skill number 3 and 4. All right, now let's talk about the juicy stuff. So I'm running Slayer now, which is giving us 26% skill power. Just make sure you have your HP and defense everywhere, but I'm going to transition him over to the Plague. It just makes sense. It's more damage all around. So some of the decisions I made on the build have that in mind, which is why I put on things like Potent Collector, and I decided to take on Focus on Toxic instead of Power Increase. Power Increase is really good, usually best in slot for the battle tag for people like Keelan, but I took the cooldown because I believe we're gonna have enough damage out there. So yeah, this build is gonna get a lot better. And for this reason, I suggest instead of toxic skill power that you put singular there if you can, because he's gonna have enough toxic skill power if you run the Plague external components. Let me know what you guys think about Keelan. I know a lot of people put him back on the box because Inez kicked so much ass, but if you haven't gotten out there to explore with these buffs, maybe it's time. Catch you on the next one.
Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm Tuxedo Bandido, and if you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on the good stuff I have coming for you. And if you like content content like this, be sure to check out the video I have recommended for you right here. If you have anything you would like me to cover, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make things possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be the same without you.
When you buy or download anything for the First Descendant, be sure to use Tux's creator code to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Wait, did we just become best friends?